following podcast contains spoilers and words like gee, whiz, and gosh damn it. We watch the thing. We watch the thing. Hello everybody and welcome back to We Watched a Thing. You're here again with Billy and Dave. How you doing, mate?
You got me to swallow a beer. I'm good, mate. Good, mate. And how are you?
I have. So I'm beer-free, sadly, but that's a very tasty-looking drop you've got there. Yeah, I've been a little bit sick, so we are recording this last minute, so hopefully I'll do the old quick turnaround. But despite the illness, I did manage to get to the cinemas a week ago to catch opening night of Avatar: Way of Water.
Fern Gully too.
So shall we talk about a thing we watched, mate?
We shall. It'll be a nice change after the last couple of weeks.
So firstly, before we get into it, I have to ask, before I even do the spiel about what the movie's about and everything, did you see this movie in 3D?
I did indeed.
Okay. All right. I'll be curious.
All the dimensions were represented.
All right, well, let's get into it then. Avatar: The Way of Water is a 2022 American epic science fiction film directed by James Cameron from a screenplay he co-wrote with Rick Jaffa and Amanda Silver. It's produced by Lightstorm Entertainment and TSG. It's the sequel to Avatar, of course, and the second film in the franchise, which who knows how many films that's going to be now. It stars Sam Worthington, Zoe Saldaña, Stephen Lang, Joel David Moore, CCH Pounder, Giovanni Ribisi, Dileep Rao, and Matt Gerald, and Sigourney Weaver. Oh my God, the list keeps going.
I noticed you carefully avoided all the new cast members.
Yes.
Go on, give it a crack.
New cast members include Kate Winslet, Cliff Curtis, Edie Falco, Jemaine Clement. And what is it about, Dave?
Oh, you skipped all of the tricky names there, you sneaky bugger.
Blame Wikipedia.
Well, we're back in Fern Gully, Pandora. 13 years have passed of presumably nice, serene living. And then, of course, all the nasty white folk come back to rape and pillage the planet once more. And we follow Jake Sully and his family. They now have 3 kids. Stephen Lang, miraculously back in the picture. Moderately well-written hijinks ensue.
So I've got to ask you this, because I find this amazing. You and I have known each other for, a couple of years now, and we've spoken about a lot of movies. I don't think we've ever spoken about Avatar, which in some ways doesn't surprise me, because let's face it, a lot of people don't talk about that film anymore. It's for one of the highest grossing films of all time. It hasn't really had legs in the zeitgeist. So I actually don't know. Were you a fan of Avatar? I'm assuming you, like everyone else in the world, saw it in cinemas.
I did, and I enjoyed it fine.
Yeah.
I don't know. Well, let's rip the Band-Aid off now. I don't worship at the altar of James Cameron.
Yeah.
I'm famously lukewarm on T2. I think it's probably the most overrated film in cinema history. I don't think Aliens can hold a candle to Alien.
Yes, finally, someone else with the same right opinion.
I mean, it's a very good action film.
Yeah.
Unlike T2, which I think is fucking bog average.
Jesus, okay. The views of David Powell do not represent the views of You Watch the Thing. Please do not at us.
Topher and I clashed over this when I was down in Canberra when we caught up. But we can get to T2 later if time permits. But my favourite Cameron film by far is The Terminator.
Yeah.
I think he's never reached those heights again. He is what you would expect from a special effects guy who ended up becoming a director. He is a visual stylist who's not a particularly good writer. None of his films are well written.
Yeah.
They all have a certain amount of visual panache, and his primary concern, to my mind, is pushing the envelope in a visual sense. He's always after that next technological leap.
Yeah.
He wants to be the guy at the vanguard. He is interested in technology. His passions are not around filmmaking, and this is not me sort of projecting.
Absolutely.
Listened to plenty of interviews. He is an explorer. Films allow him to fund the things he wants to do, whether that's, as he did fairly recently, go 7 miles down and be one. He is now officially one of the guys who has been the deepest in the ocean. And that's, his passions are around that sort of stuff. So his films always look amazing, but there's not generally a lot of depth there.
Yeah.
This is a little bit harsh, but they're kind of like very big budget tech demos. This is what the world is capable of in the realms of 3D animation or whatever.
Yeah.
Try and keep up rest of the industry.
Yeah. It's funny, like this movie taking us to the seas of Pandora is no surprise, because you're right. Like for the last probably 20 years, Cameron's biggest passion is the ocean. Absolutely. He wants to fuck the sea. He loves it. So it's no surprise. And supposedly the reason this film took so long is because they were perfecting, motion capture underwater and everything. And I do think that that's admirable. I do. And I have to say, by the end of this movie, I was really surprised by how much I loved it. And let me preface that with the reason I was surprised was because I hated the first hour and a half of this film. And
we're so in sync on this.
But I don't know if that's the film's fault. So
for me, the thing, and I came out of it liking it a lot more than I expected to.
Yeah.
But I didn't like the first, I don't know, I want to say half an hour, but given how fucking long this thing is, it could be the first hour.
Yeah.
The entire bit up until they meet up with Cliff Curtis and whoever else it is, and you get to the water, is completely forgettable.
Yeah.
The plot is boring. It doesn't look particularly good. I was really underwhelmed with the 3D.
Well, I actually had no problem with the script or anything. I think the film is far too long and needs a serious deep edit. My big problem was with the visuals, which, everyone praises the visuals of this film, and I don't necessarily blame the film for it, because here's the thing, I never should have seen this movie in 3D. I know that I've never seen the only good use of 3D I've ever seen is Tron Legacy, and I particularly hate high frame rate. But I thought, you know what, this is how James Cameron wants this movie to be viewed. So this is how I should do it. I'm reviewing it. I should see it how he wants us to see it.
He's been very vocal about that.
Yeah. The 3D is bad and the high frame rate is worse. And I think you're right. My biggest problem with it from a visual standpoint is that a movie that is so heavily CG should not be presented in high frame rate, because it just looked like a video game to me. It looked like a PS5 game, because when you combine so many computer-generated visuals with a frame rate that high, because that's what you're used to seeing. Like, that's typically how it works. Film and television, 24 frames. These days, everybody wants their video games to be 60 frames, which I personally, I hate the look of that even. But so the first hour, it took me so long to get out of that mindset. I felt like I was watching a collection of cutscenes from a video game on YouTube. It was the least cinematic experience I've had this year, and that is not
as in sync as I thought.
No, and that is not what you should be saying about Avatar, but it just really took me out. I thought the visuals in that presentation, at least, were really bad, especially because, and I couldn't figure it out until I read what he'd done later, James Cameron believes he's cured the soap opera effect, as people refer to it, which is what high frame rate gives you. He believes he's cured that by only using it for certain scenes and shots.
It was only in the underwater scenes.
Well, that's what he's saying, but it was definitely more than that.
Oh, okay.
And he's saying that the other bits were 24 frames. They're actually not. Cinemas, they can't switch frame rates like that. Those scenes are still presented in 48 frames, but it's done in what's called twos, where the frames are doubled. So each frame holds twice.
Right.
And it gave me I don't know if you saw the same thing. It looked so juddery to me, which just took me even more into the video game thing, because it just looked like lag. And I just couldn't.
No, I didn't get that at all.
Right. I couldn't get over it. It took me an hour and a half into the movie. I took a toilet break, and I very heavily considered not going back in because I was enjoying it so little. And I'm glad I went back in, because I pushed through. And by the end, that final act picks it up so much for me that I'll save it till the end, but I landed on a very high score by the end. Damn. But it took me such a long time to get into it.
So what's going to be weird is I think we're both probably going to be giving it roughly the same sort of a score, but for completely different reasons. I thought the script was boring dog shit. It's like all Cameron films. A teenager could have written it. There's nothing new. It pushes no boundaries. There's nothing special about it. It's completely unoriginal. It's very predictable. It's got bits of Moby Dick. It's got bits of that. But there's no new ground being broken.
Yeah.
But I thought it was the best looking film I've ever seen in my life.
Interesting.
Once we got to the water.
Yeah. I do think the water scenes look great. And let me be clear.
And the frame rate, whatever... I'm assuming I like the effect of the higher frame rate because there was a marked difference for me once we started getting underwater stuff.
Yeah.
So obviously, whatever the frame rate brings, along with everything else, I responded to much more positively than you did.
Yeah.
The other thing which I think made this a much better experience for me than the first Avatar was the fact that we've moved on 13 years. They've now got kids. A lot of the film is spent with the kids rather than with
yes, it brings
Jake
a
Sully
bit of that kind of Spielbergish magic, like E.T. or something.
That it's also a lot less screen time for Sam Worthington to fucking be a wooden asshole. We've touched on what a charisma vacuum he is in previously when we talked about Clash of the Titans, I think it was. He brings nothing. He's just a void. So, and Zoe Saldaña, who I normally really like in these Avatar films, particularly in this one,
she's barely
her entire character is just emotive screeching.
Yeah,
she has nothing to do in this film.
Yeah,
but the kids I thought were fantastic. I loved the adopted daughter.
Yeah,
that was Sigourney Weaver's character's Jesus' child.
Yeah.
Spider was a waste of space. I could have done.
I liked Spider.
I thought he was the weak link acting wise, and it was kind of like he was there to give the returning Stephen Lang something beyond just angry fighting.
Yeah.
I in fact could have. I love Stephen Lang, but I could have probably done without that kind of ham-fisted writing, bringing him back. Just bring a new character in.
Yeah.
We don't need to have that weird, semi-plot line. But Sully's kids I thought were great. I loved the dynamic between the older and the younger brother. I loved
same.
The journey of the arc of the younger brother, who was annoying as fuck for the first bit, but intentionally so, and following him as the outcast, meeting the outcast kind of wail and having his little story. All of that I thought was wonderful stuff, and it meant we had people other than Sam Worthington speaking, which was only a good thing.
No, I'm exactly the same. I really, really liked the children in this story, not only the performances, but the story and the dialogue between them. I thought that was all actually really quite well written. And it's funny, the movie is long, but once I got over the visual issues that I had, I actually didn't really feel the runtime. And there are scenes that happen where at first I go, why are we seeing this? And then by the end it makes sense why. And by that point I'm okay with it. It's really funny like that.
Yeah, I without exaggerating too much, I don't think, I found the first half an hour, whatever the fuck it is before you get to the water, felt longer than the 2 hours plus or whatever that you spend once you get to the water people. As soon as you got there, I was so entranced by how good it looked. I could have sat there for another 2 hours watching stuff unfold. I just thought it was absolutely stunning. Everything underwater was breathtaking.
Yeah. I have to admit, much like Cameron, I also want to fuck the sea. I love the ocean. I have unashamedly admitted before that I believe I was a whaler in a past life. And again, I'm not pro-whaling. I just feel like I was, I love the ocean.
You're a pirate.
So I'm right with you. All the water stuff was gorgeous. It was beautiful. beautiful looking and it was beautifully filmed. And that final action scene, I mean, mind the pun, blew me out of the water. I just want to ask you a couple of questions. Let's talk cast for a second. And there's two pieces.
Worthington sucks.
There's two pieces of casting and performances in particular that I want to bring up and ask you about. I want to see if you can guess who I'm talking about.
I didn't even. There were names that you read out when you went through the cast that surprised me because I have not looked at the cast for this. I didn't look at it beforehand. I didn't know who the new people. Obviously, I know Giovanni Ribisi and the Stephen Lang and the core cast that have returned. I did not look up. The only reason I thought it was Cliff Curtis is because it sounded like a New Zealander, and he's just your default guy that you get because no one knows anyone else in New Zealand. Yeah. But yeah, you said Kate Winslet. Fucking what?
Okay,
really?
All right, cool. She's one of the people I want to talk about. The other is Sigourney Weaver, who plays Sully's adopted daughter, Kiri.
What?
So,
she plays her own. She plays her own daughter.
That is Sigourney Weaver.
Know that.
And I found it really interesting. And I have to say, for however old she is, 60-plus woman playing this young teenage girl, I think that was a fantastic performance.
Weird to me. I wasn't sort of, she's got an unnaturally, world-weary voice.
It took me a while to clock it because she does look a lot like Sigourney, but I'm like, well, she's meant to be her daughter.
Just assumed that
it's a CG character anyway. But yeah, that is actually Sigourney playing her own daughter.
So that means that she had seen at least one scene where she was carrying on a conversation where she was doing both sides of it. Because you've got.
Were there any scenes where they were together? I know there was the scene she was watching video of Sigourney.
Towards the end, where she sort of has one of her sort of epiphanies with the little floating firefly things and all the rest of it. Yeah. And imagines or is transported or whatever, but she sees Sigourney as a human sitting at a computer or something and walks up going, "Oh, Mum," and Sigourney turns around and goes, "Oh, my beautiful girl." So I wonder if
they used a
that was recorded in two separate things, or if she was doing a Seth MacFarlane and just jumping back and forth.
I find it a really kind of bizarre bit of casting. And it, like I said, I clocked quite early on that it looked a lot like Sigourney. And it kind of bothered me the whole time until I Googled it and found out that, yes, it was actually her. It's kind of, given it is a CGI character and they could have just used anyone and had it, look like that, it surprised me. But I think she does an incredible job.
Well, I can't put my finger on it, but the whole time I was watching the film, I was thinking, I need to look up who does the voice of the daughter because she looks like someone. And I don't mean she looks like Sigourney. She looks like
I know what
a young actress. And I still can't quite put my finger on it. I'll probably message you at about 3 a.m. when I fucking remember it. But I remember thinking, oh, well, obviously they've kind of modelled the face a little bit on, as they do on, maybe they've mocapped it or whatever, so she kind of looks like the actress. It's obviously not the case because I didn't find it. She looked at all like Sigourney. Yeah. But she looked like someone.
I find it really bizarre, but I have to say, I think she did a really, really strong job. I'm all for it. But yeah, Winslet is the other one that I wanted to ask you about. So Winslet plays the pregnant Na'vi who is like the queen of the ocean village.
Like Cliff Curtis's wife?
Yes.
Yeah, okay.
And I
didn't pick that in a million years.
I kind of question the casting, to be honest. I love Kate Winslet. I adore her. I don't think it's necessary for that role to have someone of that caliber. And I also, is it a little, I don't know. I'm not a Na'vi. Is it a little bit questionable to have her doing that voice?
I am surprised that he wouldn't have. I mean, he's obviously got people that he likes working with. He's got, Sigourney he's worked with now at least 3 times. Winslet twice that we know of. There might be others, I don't know. It could just be I want to give jobs to my friends. It does seem odd.
Yeah.
It's not like he needs to put name actors in to put bums in seats for this.
Yeah. Yeah.
Depending on the performance of this, he might for the next one, but...
Yeah.
everyone was always going to see this.
Yeah,
He could have put unknowns in across the board. It wouldn't have made a difference.
Yeah.
It's an odd choice to stick a big name actor in there.
And I really only question it because obviously these are aliens, but they are based very heavily on kind of native cultures, and I find
there's nothing original.
I find it
This
very
is not
strange.
groundbreaking sci-fi.
I find it very strange that she's doing that accent, and I question whether you couldn't just cast someone from that region instead of have Kate Winslet do it.
Yeah, this. And I'll get on my soapbox briefly and kick me off when you're ready. Cameron, to me, is, in some respects, very similar to George Lucas, in my mind. Absolutely zero gift for writing. Lucas is a terrible writer, always has been.
But a good storyteller.
He's a good conceptualist.
Yes.
That's a word. In terms of story, he can come up with big picture stuff, but it only works when he gives it away to someone else. He's a mediocre director. He's a terrible writer. He's a big picture kind of guy. He belongs as a producer.
Yeah.
Cameron, I think, has more of a gift for directing because he's a effects guy, but they're very similar in that they cannot write, and they shouldn't. They should get people who are good at that to do it, because they would get better characterizations, they would get better dialogue, they would get all the things that are weak in everything that both of them make would be better.
Yeah.
And are better when they have other people doing it. Empire is a better film than New Hope.
Yeah.
I have more of a fondness for New Hope because I saw it, I think it was the first thing I ever saw on a big screen. I was in the backseat of a car at a drive-in at the age of about 5. But everyone acknowledges Empire is a better film. Cameron, I have more respect for now than I probably did a week ago because I've listened to a fairly extensive interview with him on Smartless, the Jason Bateman et al. Podcast. And I now have a much better understanding of him and why he does what he does. He is, like I said, he is an explorer. He doesn't have a passion for filmmaking.
Yeah.
It's a means to an end. He said at one point in that interview, he made Titanic because he wanted to build a submarine and go down the bottom of the ocean.
Yeah.
And a means to be able to fund that was to make a movie in the water.
I mean, honestly, more power to him because that's a great way to live.
One iota.
That's an amazing way to live.
I have an enormous amount of respect for the guy. He is. If you see any of the making of stuff for Aliens, that is like movie making sort of legend stuff.
Yeah,
where the trials and tribulations he went through trying to be taken seriously enough to make that. Yeah. The things he did. It was all guerrilla. He was a guerrilla filmmaker at one point. We kind of forget that because
now he just has all the budget he wants.
$10 billion. But Terminator, he's very upfront about the fact that he got fired off Piranha 2 because the producer wanted to direct, so they just got a nobody on it, just literally so they could fire him. Yeah. But the Terminator, the story around the making of that, fantastic. Yeah. I do have a lot of time for the guy. I just don't think he's a good writer.
Yeah. Let's talk about the story of this film then, and the way that it goes, and kind of get into some spoilers.
Definitely better than the Fern Gully ripoff that we saw last time around.
This is infinitely better than the first Avatar. Especially, like I said, for me, I feel like I can't even blame the film for my issues with it, because all my issues really were down to the presentation of the film. And I guess to some extent that is James Cameron's fault, because he's the one who wanted me to see it this way, and I just wish that I'd seen it in regular 2D, because I think my experience would have been infinitely more enjoyable.
I can't believe that we've enjoyed it, I think, probably about the same amount. But everything that we feel about it is diametrically opposed. We are polar opposites in every opinion on this film, and we're going to end up on the same fucking score.
But, I mean, you have to agree, regardless of whether you think the script is bad, that final act makes you feel something, right? Like, that was, like I said, I was really annoyed because I felt like the first hour and a half was the least cinematic experience I'd had all year. And that disappointed me on a deep level because that's the opposite of what this should have been. And once I got into it by the end, I was like cheering and I was like, this is cinema. Like, this is action filmmaking at its very, very best. Like, did you feel that same way by the time the credits rolled?
I mean, I spent probably the last 2 hours just not moving in my seat.
Yeah.
I thought it was just the only things I can sort of compare it to are sort of the feeling with some of the very first IMAX things I saw. The Blue Mountains helicopter thing where they followed finding the Wollemi Pine, and it was visual. It was a visual experience I'd never had before. Yeah. And this was kind of similar in that the underwater stuff in particular was so gorgeous.
Yeah.
It was a quantum, for me in my untrained eye, and I'm kind of appreciative that I don't have the burden of knowledge that you do in these sorts of films where you can see flaws that I probably don't pick up. But I was literally just sitting back in my gold class seat.
Yeah.
And I don't think I blinked for 2 hours. I was just, give me more.
Yeah.
I want a bigger screen. I want this on an IMAX. I want to dive into it. It was incredible.
And to me, that's the true magic of Cameron. Like, that's like, I am a massive, massive fan of Titanic. You know, I can't state enough how much I love that film. And deep down, I know that it's not a well-written film. I know that. But that is the magic of Cameron, is that by the end of the movie, you do not care. Like,
you're using the word "you" very loosely, Billy.
No, it's true. Even if they're not written like real characters, I'll switch to I instead of you. I cannot help but feel the emotion. Which is weird because you would think with characters written so poorly, you wouldn't be able to follow their journey and you wouldn't care about them. But I cannot help it. I do. By the end of this movie, let me tell you this. At the end of the first Avatar, I never thought I wanted a sequel, and I certainly never thought there was a need for a franchise. By the end of this movie, I was like, I need to see what happens to those kids.
I came out going, I don't want to wait 2 years for the next one, but
exactly.
I know I have to.
I came out going, yes, I want 5 more Avatars. Because if nothing else, here's the thing. A big blockbuster franchise that is, okay, I'm going to use the word in quotations here, original. Like, okay, yes, it's not the most original piece of writing.
It's a new IP.
It's a new IP. To have something like that is like actually going to launch a franchise, that the idea of that excites me just on a deep level.
Yeah, no, completely. I came out going, God, I hope they get a good studio on board to make a game tie-in, because I want to I want to be in that world on my PS5. It's I mean I know they've obviously did the principal photography and filming and everything on both this one and the next one at the same time. So all the filming's done. Yeah. But it takes 2 years for them to do all of the CG, the post stuff.
Oh, yeah.
From I think I'm getting the numbers right, both this and the next one, it's somewhere in the vicinity of 3,800 effects shots. Now, I'm not the expert you are, but that seems like a lot.
That is a lot of shots. My memory from when the team was working on Multiverse of Madness, my memory is that was about 1,100. And it's a lot of shots. It's a lot of shots. I don't know if you heard the rumors or whether this is true, but apparently Cameron has a 9-hour cut of Avatar 3. That's the assembly cut. And he's even though it's never going to be released that way, he is insisting on the effects being done to that entire 9 hours.
Oh, God bless him. I like that.
No way. And I guess I'm kind of torn. I get what he's saying, because with a film like this, you probably can't even really know what works and what doesn't until you see the effects, because the effects are half of the film. So yeah. I kind of get his reasoning. Like, he needs to see the finished product before he can cut it back. But at the same time, that is a lot of work and a lot of money for shots that are just going to hit the cutting room floor.
Yeah, I'm assuming he's basically just living in New Zealand for the next 2 years. Because, I mean, he's not the kind of guy that would not want to look at every single second of every of the next film. Yeah. So if they're going to be working on it for the next 2 years, he'll be there for the next 2 years. Yeah. It was really interesting actually hearing him talk about. The plan was obviously originally for 5 of these things. Yeah. Rather sensibly, they've gone, okay, well, we'll do 2, because if this one tanks, we don't have 10 more years of films in a franchise no one's interested in anymore. I think this one's going to do very, very well. Yeah. Well, the next one will obviously come in a couple of years' time when they finish doing all the posts. But he's filmed all 5 films with the kids, because they would obviously age out of their characters in the rather extended time frames if it's 2 years between each film.
I mean, given that Sigourney played a kid, I guess Spider would be the only one that really matters.
Spider was the big question, because obviously he is not CG, he's just a human kid. So I understand they filmed all of the kids' stuff.
Yeah, wow.
For all of the films.
That's crazy.
And that's it, just for that reason, because it's whatever value you put on the quality of the acting in these films, Cameron claims to value the actor's performance. Yeah. And when asked, surely you can just CG, you can just create whatever. It's like, no. It all starts with the actor's performance. All we're doing is basically applying the equivalent of digital makeup. Yeah. Which is a very nice way. I was surprised to hear him refer to it that way, which it was quite gratifying.
I like that, actually. I really like that.
Because, it's quite an interesting interview if you can deal with the bantering between the 3 hosts of the podcast, which can get a bit grating at times. But they touch on things like AI. He's obviously at the cutting edge of it. So many technologies, and it got around to the idea of totally digitally created actors, and does he see that ever being a thing? And it was very much of the opinion, no. Yeah, the actor's performance is the crux of it. All we're doing is using the technology that's available, much as in the same way that he would have done with practical special effects back when he was in Roger Corman's shop, to change how they look. But in that sense, it's kind of no different than when you see an Andy Serkis performance. Yeah. It's still him acting. There's just sort of digital makeup over the top to make him look different, but the performance is still the performance. Yeah. Sam Worthington's no Andy Serkis, but it's obviously it's good to hear him say that's irrespective of the billions of dollars and hundreds of people on workstations that go into making these films, that he still views it as an actor's performance at the centre of it.
I honestly, I didn't expect that from Cameron, because as you say, filmmaking is not really like his biggest passion. I'm very surprised to hear that, and I think that that's a great opinion. That's
it's a shame he didn't cast better.
The one thing I've learned in my short time on Earth is never bet against Cameron. If he wants to make 10 Avatar films, we're going to see all 10 of them. I don't think this franchise is stopping at 3. He kind of shot himself in the foot a couple of weeks ago when he came out and he said, Way of Water needs to be the second biggest film of all time to turn a profit. And it's like, wow, that's a big... he's basically saying it needs to be a $2 billion film.
But if it doesn't, if it only makes $1.5 billion, it's still one of the highest grossing films of all time.
Exactly.
Is a studio really going to say, nah, it's a failure, we're not going to get beyond?
That's the thing, especially...
Because there's an economy of scale. Then a lot of the budget on this, and the reason it needs to turn the profit is because...
It's back to back.
Well, that, but also from my understanding, so much new CG stuff had to be invented, particularly for the water effects.
Yeah.
But that's now done.
Yeah, yeah.
So, and he/Weta own that.
Yeah.
So all the subsequent films, presumably, assuming that water remains a factor, at least for the next one, will be that much cheaper because that investment's now done. They own the technology. All of that stuff's already there. They've got the toolkit. So the budget on the third film, presumably, is going to be significantly lower.
Yeah.
Because they've done the R&D already.
Yeah. I mean, I have no question that this film will be a huge success. And honestly, rightfully so. Is it going to win the Oscar? No, I don't think so. It's not going to win Best Picture.
It should win all of the technical stuff.
Yeah, I think its only competition will be Maverick, which I think has a lot of buzz. See, it's funny. They've got Maverick.
Maverick's a Tom Cruise film. There's no effects in that. It's just him in a plane.
Well, that's right, though. You've got that, which is very much being lauded for its kind of practicality, and then this, which is being lauded for its very complete CGI, and it's kind of that kind of battle against each other. I
enjoyed this more than Maverick.
Yeah? Yeah, I enjoyed Maverick better, personally.
Maverick was fun, but it broke no ground as far as I'm concerned. It was just a better Top Gun.
Yeah, yeah.
And it hit almost all the same plot beats. It's kind of like the Force Awakens of Top Gun.
Ooh.
Let's make a new version, lads.
As someone who hated the first Top Gun.
New stuff.
As someone who hated the first Top Gun.
But what did you hate about it? The homoerotic volleyball scene? Got that. I enjoyed Maverick. I just think I expected more, particularly after seeing so many people go, 5 out of 5. Oh my God, a cinematic investing in the last. No, it's fucking not. It's not even close to that. It was just a good film. It had some good action sequences. The acting was all fine. The story was pretty fucking pedestrian. It was, Iron Eagle smashed up with the original Top Gun and, not much else. There were some ludicrous leaps of logic in there that really took me out of it. Whereas this, once I got past that initial forest bit, I was just in hog heaven, just visually just enjoying it.
I'll tell you what, though. I would actually be surprised if this won many awards, even the ones that it should win. I just have a feeling that it won't. And I don't think this will have the same legs in cinema that the first one had either. I don't think that this one will still be in cinemas, say, by the start of Feb. That's just my prediction. I don't think this is going to have the same number of repeat viewers either. Like, Avatar was such an event, and it was kind of at the birth of 3D, that a lot of people went to see it twice in 2D and 3D. And I don't see this having that same kind of power. But I definitely think it's going to be a success.
I think cinemas will probably be keen to see the back of it because they can't get many
other screenings.
Because it's 3.5 fucking hours long or whatever it is. And I haven't heard from anyone who's seen it in 2D. Yeah. But I really think it would lose something. I thought the 3D was
It's so funny that you and I are so different on this. That's so funny.
And I'm not 3D to me, it's always been a fad. Yeah. I never bought into it. I never thought it was going to be a thing. I thought it was going to be a flash in the pan. Yeah. Beowulf was fun, but it was fun the way going to an amusement park is fun. Yeah. I don't want that on every movie. I've seen it. It's like, oh, the spear's coming right at me. Great. Okay. But it's not. And I'm sure there were people like me back when the jazz singer was coming out going, colour, not going to be a thing. But it never, it was always
a gimmick.
I think the reason it took me out of the film.
Yeah.
I was focused more on the, oh, wow, that's, surprising and intriguing and whatever. But it made me stop thinking about the story and the characters and start thinking about the fact that, oh, the spear looks like it's coming right out of the screen.
Yeah.
With this, I found the 3D a lot more subtle. Once we got past that bullshit forest bit at the start where we did get all of the arrows flying at the screen, once we got past that bit, I didn't notice the 3D until and I did it a couple of times, took the glasses off, mainly because I wanted to see how much light I was losing with the 3D. Because
I do think you lose the colours, a
bit. But without the glasses, I actually found there was almost like a lack of warmth to it.
Yeah, the technology has definitely changed.
It was so much better than I remember.
Yes, the tech has changed a lot.
and it was a lot more subtle. There wasn't, as there was sort of 10, 20 years ago when you saw a 3D film, it was almost like watching a puppet show where you had 3 or 4 levels of scenery and the puppets sort of interacting between them. This was sort of seamless. It wasn't like there's a layer of visuals that's right up at the screen. There's a layer of visuals that's about, 20% beyond that. There's another layer of visuals. It was seamless all the way back, which I think is what made it.
It didn't feel like cutouts. Yeah.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it wasn't a series of 2D things staggered back into the distance.
Yeah.
It was just it was all, gradual.
Yeah. Well, this is interesting. So we've had completely different criticisms. Can we say our score at the same time?
Yep.
1, 2, 3,
78.
8. Oh, you went out of 100.
7.8 then.
7.8. Yeah.
You haven't.
What did
you say? 80?
I'm an 8. Yeah. It's so funny. By halfway through the film, I was like, "This is a 5. This is so uninteresting. It's just no good." I went for a toilet break. I came back. And at a certain point during that period, when they got to the water village and everything, the visuals started bothering me a lot less. I think similar to you, it was the forest stuff that really got to me. And beyond that point, everything started to look a lot better, and I was able to get that out of my head. And just gradually, my score went up. After 20 minutes, I was like, okay, maybe this is a 6. And then, we see a lot more of the kids. They're doing a lot. I really like their interactions. I'm like, it's a 7.
I kind of slagged it a bit because the writing's not original or anything, but I did kind of respond to the whole family dynamic thing, and particularly where you've got Jake and whatever Zoe Saldaña's
Neytiri.
Yeah, I was going to say Neytiri, but then I couldn't remember if I know Na'vi are the race, so Neytiri. Yeah.
Yes.
They're each trapped in their own various bits where we're sort of reliving the Abyss or Titanic with people trapped in air pockets. And then Jesus Girl comes through and saves them. That was all quite effective. I was sort of I was almost slapping myself going, why are you so emotionally invested in this? It's pedestrian writing.
That's what I was saying about Cameron. It's the magic of Cameron. I won't say you. I buy into it, and I didn't cry, but I was moved by the characters, and I honestly can't wait for the next one.
Yeah. And tell you what, and I haven't looked at his score, but I reckon this has added half a point to Paul Prezula's score. Ballsy to kill off a kid.
Yes.
I really expected them to somehow miraculously revive him. Jesus Girl was going to drop glowing bugs on him or something. But that was really surprising, and I was quite. I mean, not pleased the kid died, but I was pleased that it stuck to its guns and actually had some weight and consequence to. Because it would be totally unrealistic to go through that entire film and have no casualties.
Yes, definitely. So there you go. That's a definite recommend from us here at We Watched a Thing.
It's a recommend to see it in cinemas in 3D. I don't know if I'd recommend to see it on streaming. I think it would lose about 80% of its wonder for me on streaming. I don't know.
right.
I'd even bother.
I mean, I'm definitely going to see it again, but in 2D. Whether that's at the cinemas or on streaming,
I'm going to do that.
Wait and see.
If I can get to it again in 3D, I might. Yeah, I might.
Yeah, interesting. You know what I experienced for the first time recently? A 4D movie. Have you ever done one of those?
Oh, wait on. Is this one of the William Castle things that fucking zaps you in the ass and drops water on you and that sort of shit?
I was traveling for work recently and I had a bit of downtime. I was like, I'll go to the movies. The only session that was on was a 4D showing of Wakanda Forever, which I hadn't seen yet. So I was like, okay, I'll go do it.
Yeah.
Moving seats and water splashing on you and wind and stuff.
Wakanda Forever?
Yeah.
Seems
not enjoyable. I can't recommend it. The moving seats in particular, like I love like theme park rides, but by the end of the movie, I was like, I might be sick.
That's some bullshit gimmicky stuff that I just,
can't recommend.
There is no way that the technology exists for the movement to be seamless enough that it adds to the experience rather than being a cheap gimmick.
It's one of those weird things too, because it's like, whose movement are you following? You know, like there are times where the seats move with the camera, like if the camera's doing a pan or a tilt.
I'm sort of imagining Temple of Doom riding the mining cart.
Yeah, there's a lot of time.
Which is like just basically that's a theme park ride.
Yeah, during action scenes, they're literally just shaking. It's just all over the shop.
Fuck off. That'd annoy the piss out of me.
Well, there you go. So next week we will be getting to a 4D movie. No, next week we're getting towards the end of the year, mate.
It's close, isn't it?
I know. So, I mean, hell, it's Christmas this week. Are you prepared?
In terms of like buying presents and shit? No.
I guess.
I do that on about the 23rd.
So next week I'll be joined by a great friend of the show, Sean Carney from Scaredy Boys. We're going to be doing our top 5 of the year and our top 5 from 2012 as is tradition.
I'm so intrigued to hear what you've got for that.
I have to ask, would Way of Water make your top 5?
No.
No, okay. That's good. God, no. you had me worried.
It'd be a
for a
sad year for cinema if fucking Avatar was in the top. No.
So that'll be a lot of fun. And then the week after that, to kick off the new year, Jason from Binge Movies is going to join me for our worst 5 of the year, which is something I've never done here on the show. But the idea came up with Jason when we watched Firestarter, which was abysmal.
Yeah, I can see that. That's an easy list to make for me, worst of the year. There's at least 3 that are just straight onto the list.
So I don't like slagging on things, but hopefully that's a bit of fun.
I still think it's enormous fun. It's very cathartic.
And then we're into the new year, mate.
Yeah.
I know you've been
2023.
I know you were looking at the schedule. What are we looking at that first week of Jan? Ooh, White Noise is coming out.
I'm so keen for that.
Yes.
Are you a DeLillo fan? Have you read the book?
I've not read the book.
Oh, it's bloody good.
But that is, what's his name, isn't it? Noah Baumbach.
Yeah.
Big Noah Baumbach fan.
Yeah, and with
Greta Gerwig.
Driver and Greta Gerwig acting again, which is nice.
I'm very, very excited for that.
I accidentally saw a trailer, which, like you, I'm trying to avoid doing that shit these days because so many of them spoil everything. But I'm super keen.
Yeah.
Really, really keen. I think it's going to be very, very, very good.
Yeah. I recently got to Triangle of Sadness as well. Maybe that should be a double feature episode.
Yeah, I that's still on my list. I meant to get to that last week and didn't.
All right. Well, that's it. In the meantime, I hope you have a Merry Christmas and a Happy New Year.
You too, my friend. and I shall think of you when I'm introducing the kids to the Muppets Christmas Carol.
Yes. In the meantime, if you want to get in touch with us, you can do that at wewatchedathing.com or wewatchedathing@gmail.com. You can find us on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter, all under the handle at wewatchedathing. If you want to help support the show, you can do that at patreon.com/wewatchedathing, and we'll catch you next week.
Or next year.